How's everyone doing today? Welcome into the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiaga, bringing you guys this live show today on April 12th. What better way to close out the week and start the weekend by tuning into the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. I have another round of stories and topics to talk to you guys about here, swirling around the NFL, starting with DeVonta Smith's new contract extension that's being talked to right now, being looked over right now, trying to get him extended. He is eligible now, so the Eagles are looking into that. Later on the show, we're going to be talking about how likely it is for the Cowboys to start looking around in the draft potentially now for a new quarterback, a long-term plan, longer, extended beyond Dak Prescott. If he isn't there come next year, if they can't figure out an extension, we're going to get into that conversation. And then, towards the end of the show, surprisingly, talking about Tom Brady, the GOAT, potentially coming back and playing in the NFL. You can't get rid of this guy. He always wants to come back, always wants to be involved in football. He was on a podcast. He brought it up. He was asked the question, and he's still uttering over the fact that he could come back into the NFL. So that will be later on in the show. A lot to get into here today. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. And before I get into the first segment, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments, use the tip and donations link that you see on your screen and running across the ticker below with any of your questions. The link is gsmcspodcast.net. Using that link, I'm able to see your question in the chat box. I can read it out loud on air and then carry the conversation that way, maybe take it in a different direction. It's a lot more engaging, a lot more fun for me, I think, and it's a big help for this show and the network as well. Using that link, we always appreciate you guys whenever you guys are able to do that with any question or comment. Again, the tip and donations link is gsmcpodcast.net. But I can get into the first topic now. Like I mentioned, DeVonta Smith and his contract extension. The Eagles have been pretty busy on that part in the offseason, extending Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, both getting pretty big deals. I think now they're both under contract until 2028, 2027, something like that. So they're in it for the long haul. The Eagles make sure to lock down their most important players. Very deserved contract for both of them. Landon Dickerson slowly becoming one of the best guards in the NFL. Jordan Mailata as well, one of the top left tackles in the NFL. So it makes sense. Very valid deals that both of them got. Very well deserved. And now they're continuing on this trend to try and get the contract extension talk started with DeVonta Smith. 25 years old still, under contract this year technically. And they still have his fifth-year option on his rookie deal, so there's still a good amount of time left, but he is technically eligible to that extension now, to at least start talking about it. And this past year was his third year in the NFL, so after 3 years, you really get a good look at a guy and what he can bring and what more he could bring to the table as well going forward in this Eagles offense. With so many star players all around him, he still finds a way to shine in most games, still makes an impact, and then in other games is one of their best players, if not the best player on the field that day. So it all makes sense for them, the Eagles, to try and extend him. ESPN's Tim McManus said that there's a general optimism between both parties, the Eagles and DeVonta Smith and his representatives, that a deal will eventually get done. Smith is supposed to get $6.4 million this year, the last year of his rookie deal. But then, like I mentioned, they have that fifth-year option they can exercise as well. And by doing that, if they decide to do that and not figure out an extension before, he will be making $15.5 million in that fifth year in 2025 if they decide to do that. If they decide they need a bit more time to figure out the finer details of a contract or trying to figure out a number that both of them are happy with, they have that fifth-year option. He'll earn $15.5. And just looking back at DeVonta Smith, I mentioned his impact in the games, how important he is to this Eagles offense. Even with so many weapons around him, he still finds a way to improve and get better and just show out in all these games where he is, I believe, one of the more reliable weapons for Jalen Hurts. And thinking about it more and more when I was looking over this topic and just thinking about DeVonta Smith, spending a lot of time in college, all 4 years there in Alabama, he is really one of the players that I can pick out right away that came in to the NFL and was ready to just take over. At least one of the skill position players that I could think of right away. It's probably him, Joe Burrow, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two, but those two really just jump into my mind as once they got into the league, it was really seamless, a very seamless transition for both of them. They got in, and talking about just seamless transition with DeVonta Smith in his rookie year, 64 receptions, 916 yards, broke the Eagles' rookie receiving yards record with 916, 5 touchdowns as a rookie. So already, it really was no transition period. It didn't seem like it, at least with him. And then you bring in more help. You bring in A.J. Brown, and he still made sure to get his piece of the puzzle and still contribute in a major way. In 2022, when A.J. Brown was first there, he put up almost over 1,200 yards in that year. And then, talking about last year, another 1,000-yard receiving year for him, 7 touchdowns as well to add on to that. Even if the Eagles might not have finished the year how they wanted to, how they envisioned, there is no doubt that DeVonta Smith was definitely not the problem to that. He has only provided them good things, and it's obvious, more than obvious, that they need to keep him around. He just continues to get better. Is very mature coming into this team, and looking at the numbers and how this extension could potentially work out, ESPN also mentioned that an extension could fall between $25 million, sort of in the range of A.J. Brown and the kind of contract he got in 2022, which isn't bad, honestly. If looking at that contract, you think of A.J. Brown, one of the best receivers in the league. Not many receivers make more than A.J. Brown. A lot of them really just hit that cap at $25 million per year. If you're not some of the best receivers, the only receivers that make more than $25 million per year are Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and Cooper Kupp. Those are the only receivers. Those three are the only receivers that make more money than A.J. Brown. Mike Evans just got a new deal. He's in around that range as well. So really, if you're one of the top, you get pushed into the 28s, 27s, 30s is the highest, which Tyreek Hill owns. You look at Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb. They're receivers that want to get into that conversation. And who knows, DeVonta Smith might think of himself that highly. Why wouldn't he? But I think it'll be more realistic for the Eagles to fit him in to a 25, probably max 28, 27 range for DeVonta Smith. And it's great because all of your star power on the Eagles offense, if you sign DeVonta Smith, which I expect them to do, all of your star are under contract until the foreseeable future. I mentioned Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson is still there until 2026. He's on the older side, but you still got a few more years with him under contract. Jalen Hurts just got an extension. A.J. Brown, like I mentioned 2 years ago, signed that deal with them. Saquon Barkley signed this year and got a new 3-year deal as well. So you lock down DeVonta Smith, and you secure most, if not all, of your future, your essential players for another 4-5 years down the line, with players getting extensions now and later on in a few years. It's great business by the Philadelphia Eagles, which have earned a reputation of locking down their stars early, which again just is another positive for DeVonta Smith and the team, so this just doesn't carry on lingering into the season and just people keep talking about it. It's a good reputation that the Eagles have, re-signing their players, extending them, and it's great for DeVonta Smith. it's better even if they get it signed before CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, because it obviously will drive up the price range. If the ceiling of the price gets higher, DeVonta Smith might think he might have more room to wiggle with. If you sign him now, it'll only bode better for the Eagles, so that makes the most sense. And more cap room as well to not be blocked by this move. Extending him just gives you a bit more wiggle room with the salary cap going forward. It's all pointing in the right direction right now for DeVonta Smith. I don't think anybody will argue that he doesn't deserve it. That kind of contract that is seemingly just coming to him. It's just a matter of time now. If instead of if it comes, DeVonta Smith is one of the best pieces on the Eagles, and with this contract, it'll bode well both for the Eagles and Smith to just move on with it, and then they could focus on other things, the defense, the secondary, mostly on that side of the ball, to really get this group whole again, to try and compete in that NFC and rebound from the kind of year that they had last year. So that's where that stands. Pretty much all positive news coming from the Eagles. They're just checking off boxes on their offseason list. Very successful offseason. They're just moving right along as any successful organization will do. So that's where they stand on it. One of the last things they really just have to do in this offseason. I'm sure they're going to get it done. But we can move on from that and move on to more topics. We're going to go into a quick break right now, and on the other side of this break, I'm going to bring you a story around the NFL that they announced a few days ago around the helmets that the players wear, new helmet designs, rules, and new helmet models coming in 2024 that should be safer, new rules around the designs that should bring back some more colorful, fun options for these teams to kind of experiment with. I'm going to get into all those details after the break. We're just getting started here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. Don't go anywhere.